You're watching Beyond the Whistle, brought to you by NCTV.
Hello again, everybody. Matt Schlegel and Scotty Luntz here for NCTV. It's that time of the year. It's bracket season. We're going to be breaking this down for Beyond the Whistle. It's our 6th episode. Scotty and I are pretty happy to be here. Scotty, Thursday, opening day of the NCAA tournaments. What we just said is one of the best days of the year. How's it going?
It's going well, Matt. Obviously, my favorite day of the year. You got those games starting in the middle of the school day. Get to watch some good games. Nothing better.
Yep. All right, so we're just going to dive right in. Now, on Selection Sunday this past week, a couple teams didn't make it. For snubs, you and I both have Syracuse. Why do you think Syracuse should be in this tournament?
Well, obviously, they had a big win against the top 25 team in Virginia. Virginia was streaking at the time that Syracuse beat them. They were down 11 at the half. They came back, and they have a couple big wins in there. Syracuse is a team you always see in the tournament. Last year, no one thought they were going to advance, but they beat Virginia again. I think this is a team you have to have in a tournament because they're always a contender.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying, and really the thing that stuck out to me was how well they played and what conference they played in. The ACC, they went 10-8, which is this year one of the most amazing conferences I've seen in college in a long time. Last year, like you talked about, they were a 10 seed. Some people thought they shouldn't get in. I think they had a better case to get in this year than they did last year. And with a 10 seed, with Malachi Richardson, Boeheim led them to the Final Four, which was really remarkable. They just couldn't overcome the two bad losses to St. John's and Boston College, which is the problem that I have. And that's really why the committee did not put them in. However, the reason why I think they still should be in is because the whole argument with Syracuse is that they've had two slip-ups against bad teams. I think the argument should be, how do you play against good teams? Because when you're in the tournament, that's what you're doing. You're playing good teams. And you look at a team like USC, they got in. They only had really two quality wins against UCLA and SMU, both at home in Southern California, whereas Syracuse, they beat six top 50 teams and 3 in the top 10 over the course of this season. So they've proven that they can get up for those big games and they can play well in these big games. And so I think they had a real shot to make this tournament, and I think it's a shame, especially with Boeheim retiring after next season. I would really like to see him especially get to the tournament next year and put to run together all-time great coach. And I think they got snubbed. Now moving on, Scotty, we're going to break down some regions. You're going to do the West and Midwest. I got East and South. So want to start with the Midwest for me? Just break that down.
Yeah, I will. I think this is Louisville's year. Rick Pitino in the playoffs is always a contender. He's a coach that's experienced. He's been there before. And I think that Louisville can advance. You have some guys like Oregon there, but I think Oregon's overrated. You have Kansas, but defense wins championships. And Louisville has that. I think they can advance to the Final Four and they can get past. There's a couple sleepers here. I think Rhode Island is one. I think they'll get past Creighton. Maurice Watson, done for the season on ACL tear. He was the leading player in assists in the NCAA before he went down. I think that eliminates Creighton. You have teams like Purdue who struggle in the tournament every year, but I think Louisville will be able to get by them. The real challenge, obviously, with Josh Jackson will be Kansas.
Yeah, I don't see Louisville. I don't see him getting over. I have an upset. I have Michigan beating him. Probably going to change that once we get closer to the games. I don't see him getting over Oregon either. Dylan Brooks is a very good player. Obviously, they lost Boucher to injury. Great shooter, great rebounder. But if they do happen to get by Oregon, I don't know how they're going to get by Kansas. Like you said, Josh Jackson, Frank Mason, Bill Self. I think Kansas has a real shot to win the national title this year. But, Rick Pitino is one of the better coaches in college basketball. I could see him pulling it off. So now let's go to the East region, headlined by the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, Jay Wright and the Villanova Wildcats, the reigning defending national champions. So I got Nova. I think this region is going to set up for a remarkable game. You got the Elite Eight. I have Villanova playing Duke in Madison Square Garden. That's going to be an amazing game. Really going to be excited to see that, and I really think that's definitely going to happen. And I got Duke beating Nova in that game. I think Duke is going to win this year's national title under Coach Krzyzewski for a couple reasons. Obviously, everybody knows Grayson Allen and Luke Kennard, who are two very volume scorers, really gifted players. And then you got Jason Tatum, who's going to go probably in the top 5 in this year's NBA draft, another very freak athlete, smart player, disciplined player. With those 3 players, those are 3 players who I think are top 10 in the nation right now. Grayson Allen, most people wouldn't agree with. I'm a big guy on Grayson Allen. I love how much I hate him watching him play and that kind of stuff. It's like the old Christian Laettner throwback for some. I like all 3 of them. I think that the way that Kennard and Allen can get to the rim, the way Tatum can command himself down low and kind of by the elbows and that kind of stuff. And then they have Emile Jefferson, who's been hurt, who's been a very good player. So I think that's 4 players in the top 25 in the country. And with that under Mike Krzyzewski, I think that's going to be a very dominant team in this tournament. And I think they're the best coach team in the tournament. And they match up well against Villanova because of that Coach Krzyzewski dominance and discipline that he preaches all throughout practice. Jay Wright, what he likes to do, they run their offense in 2 ways, and they really kind of mess with your head in the sense that they'll move the ball around. They'll have 5, 6, 7 passes on a possession and get an easy layup, and you think that they're going to be a slow, methodical team, and then the next drive, Josh Hart takes it to the rim and dunks on you. So there's so many different ways to go about it, and obviously I think that Villanova could very well win this game. I think they're 2 very good teams. I don't see anybody else coming out of this region. Is there anybody who could maybe somehow get past both Duke and Villanova in your eyes?
I'm not sure exactly, but I think SMU is a big one. I could see
like
SMU beating Duke in the Sweet 16. Although Duke, when Grayson Allen decided he was going to return for his junior season, he was probably the favorite for the win. Everyone thought this Duke team was going to just blow by everybody. Unfortunately, things trip up, obviously.
Oh, nice.
And Luke Kennard, every time I watch this guy play, I'm more and more impressed. Jason Tatum is just a gifted athlete. And I could see them being Villanova, but I don't think they will. I think they'll have a tough time getting past SMU, but I think they'll get by it. Villanova is just too talented a team, and in the end, discipline will come into the factor. And Grayson Allen, we know he has his off-the-field issues. Well, not really off-the-field issues, but behavior issues on the court. I'm a Grayson Allen guy also, but I don't think Duke can get by him. Can get by Villanova.
Yeah, I think whatever happens, I really do think it will be Duke and Villanova in the Elite Eight in the Garden. Should be a very fun game, crazy atmosphere. I think whichever team wins that game, I think is going to go on to win the national title. I think I can say that pretty confidently. So yeah, all right, Scotty, West region. You got Gonzaga at the 1 seed. I think this is a pretty weak region altogether. There's not a lot of teams in here that I wanted to pick, but walk me through this one.
You don't like picking the 1, 2, and 3 seeds, but those are the best seeds. The committee got it right this time. Gonzaga is the best team in this West region. Florida State is a top team in Arizona. I think those are 3 of the top 10 teams in the country. Florida State has proven it this year. They beat Virginia. They've had some big wins. And Malik Hooper, I think they can get by a couple seeds. I think they could beat Arizona, honestly. And Arizona was one of the early favorites to make the Final Four, but I just don't think they can. I think Florida State will get them. But my big team is Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga will win the national championship this year.
Really?
I think they have it. I've never seen a Gonzaga team this good. The only team you can compare it to is the Kelly Olynyk team, 3 years ago. But this Gonzaga team is better than I've ever seen before. They have defense, they have big men, and in the end, as I said before, defense wins championships. They have one of the best big men in the NCAA. I think they'll have no problem getting until the Elite Eight, and either Arizona or Florida State will be their big challenge. I think they'll be able to get by them. I think another team to watch, although they're sleepers, Northwestern. This team has hype coming into
I
here.
agree with that.
I think they'll get past Vanderbilt, and it'll be a good one facing Gonzaga. This is a team, they'll get the Chicago crowd rallied up, post-Cubs era. They'll definitely get it going. And I think they have a good chance of getting past Gonzaga. I think they'll definitely, at the least, make it a good game.
Yeah, I like what you said there. I don't know. For whatever reason, I haven't watched much of Gonzaga play this year. I just haven't seen enough to be sold on them, but we'll see how it goes. So a team that I want to keep my eye on in that region is Florida State. They got a lot of guys. They got Jonathan Isaac, Dwayne Bacon, Terrence Mann, all these guys who are freak athletes or have long, lengthy arms. They're one of the most talented cores in the NCAA, and they seize mismatches. They attack the rim. They fly up and down the court. Really, they're one of those just pure athletic teams. The problem with those teams is they have very high highs and very low lows. I want to know what Florida State team shows up in this tournament here. Now, they're the 3 seed. I think they could make a bit of a run. I have Arizona winning just because they're big game, they're battle-tested, they've played well in these big games, and what sold it for me was beating Oregon in the Pac-12 tournament. And I think Florida State's worth keeping your eye on. When I first filled out my bracket, I put them in the Final Four just because of how high they can get, like I said, and with their athleticism. But it's very risky to put so much in a team like that because they can have, like I said, such low lows. South region now. This one is a ridiculous region. I think there are 3 teams in here that could very well win the national title. You got North Carolina at the 1 seed, Kentucky at the 2, and UCLA at the 3, led by Lonzo Ball, who we'll talk about in a minute. But the other thing this bracket has, I think, has most likely Cinderella. We talked about this earlier, Scotty. You got Middle Tennessee, who last year shocked Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans in a big game in the first round. They were the 2 seed at the time. They could make some moves. It's kind of remarkable that they are actually favored to beat Minnesota, who is a 5 seed. So it's not much of an upset. It's become the popular pick, but nonetheless, 12/5. I'm taking Middle Tennessee there. They've been playing very well all year, and they're a fun team to watch. So that's kind of Cinderella first round upset to watch. But then you get to the big 3. For North Carolina, it's a pretty easy road to get to the Elite 8. They got Butler in the Sweet 16, who I think is a good team, but I think North Carolina's not going to have any problems with them. It's once they get to the Elite 8, they're going to have a very good game, and then most likely going to play UCLA or Kentucky. I think they're going to play UCLA just because UCLA's got a bit easier road to get there. Kentucky, first round, Northern Kentucky, they're going to win that game by 1,000,000. And then the second round for Kentucky, they're playing Wichita State, who's a 10 seed. Don't agree with that seeding at all. I think if you're looking at UCLA, they're better off with the 3 seed, avoiding Wichita, avoiding Butler and all these guys. They got to go through Kent State and then most likely Kansas State, who I'm picking, or Cincinnati. So I just see UCLA taking on UNC in the Elite 8. A lot of people like to hate on Lonzo Ball because of all that's going on with his father, just not shutting his mouth. But he's a freak athlete. He's a darling player. He can get to the rim. He's the best passer in college basketball. One of the best passers I've seen, with a nation best 7.7 assists a game, averaging close to 15 points a game. And then they got TJ Leaf and Bryce Alford, lights out from 3. And UCLA, it's been a while. Before we were alive, UCLA ran college basketball. They were the class. They had Bill Walton, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at the time, Lou Alcindor. And yeah, I think they're coming back now. I mean, they got a great fan base, and I think this is their year. I have them going to the Final Four, but not going to get by Duke in the national title game. Who do you like in this region?
I think UCLA has a good pretty easy path to the Sweet 16. I think absolutely Wichita State will get by Dayton, and they could be the team to watch. I think they'll have a good match versus Kentucky. Every single year we watch Wichita State and are impressed by their play. Small school in Kansas that consistently gets by. But in my Final Four of this region, I'm going to take UNC. I think Kentucky will make it to the Elite 8 and play UNC. But after a choke last year by UNC, Marcus Page, a phenomenal college career, I don't think they'll lose again. I think they'll get it to the Final Four. Kentucky, ultimately, I think they'll beat UNC because defense wins championships, as I've said. Mm-hmm. And UCLA needs to be consistent on defense. They're scoring 90 points a game, by far the best offense in the NCAA. But defense needs to get there, and they're inconsistent on defense, where Kentucky is just a little bit better. Kentucky also is around that same range on offense, but the difference in defense will help them get to the Elite 8. Ultimately, I think UNC will come out.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said before, UNC, UCLA, Kentucky, and don't sleep on Butler. Butler was a team ranked 1 in the country at some point earlier this season. You talked about how you think UCLA's offense won't hold up. See, the reason why I think it will is because, yes, they have Leaf and Alford, who are shooters. And when offenses are so hot, it's usually from shooters. And you can see, like, a team like Golden State, when they're bad, they're very bad. Because if their shots aren't going in from deep, they don't have anything else to do. With Lonzo Ball, he can make so many people better on the court. He can give people easy shots. He'll get the inbound from on the other side of the court, throw a football pass down the line, somebody's got an easy layup. That's what he does. He spaces out the floor. He'll find you underneath. He makes the game so much easier for his teammates, which is why I think he should go first in the draft. We can get to that some other time. I think they're going to put a run together, and I think it's going to be fun to watch. And I think he's talented enough under the bright lights. I think he's going to play well.
Yeah, absolutely. As a Lakers fan, I've watched Lonzo Ball all season. I think one of the underrated parts of his game is rebounding. This is a guy who consistently will get 10-plus rebounds. And if he can play on defense, I think UCLA will get to the Final Four potentially. I think they're the real threat to UNC, honestly, more than a threat than Kentucky. But the issue is that, as we said, Golden State, when they're hot, they're hot. And I don't know, a college team that's made up of mostly freshmen. We'll see how UCLA does, but defense is the key here. I think Lonzo Ball can be a key contributor on that defense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's going to be something fun to watch. Before we go, give me a player who's going to shine in this tournament. There's always one guy who just kind of comes into his own in this big tournament, plays well under the bright lights. So who do you like making a name for himself in this tournament?
So I'm going to go Zach Irving on Michigan. In that championship game, he had 18 points. He's been consistently getting it up. I think this is a guy to watch, a guy who's showing up, and in the tournament, a Michigan team that could make a run. I think they could beat Louisville. I'm high on Louisville, but I think they could lose to Michigan. Michigan's a team that constantly upsets. They lost to Louisville in that championship 4 years ago.
Yep. Trey Burke and
And I think Zach Irvin could lead them to potentially the Elite Eight.
And they're hot. I mean, you hate what happened with them and they're playing, but I mean, it kind of sparked something on that team. They won the Big Ten, so I like that pick. I'm going to go with Harry Giles, which is kind of weird to call him an under-the-radar player because he was a top 5 recruit, was going to be a lottery pick, and just couldn't stay healthy and kind of lost everything. But he's showing strides of the player he was with Kennard ahead of him and Allen and Tatum and Jefferson. He's not the guy on Duke per se, but I think he's going to have a very good tournament. I think if they win the national title, I think he's going to play a big role rebounding, getting big shots, and ones, that kind of stuff. Not going to wow you on the stat sheet, but he's going to come up with big plays because I think he's a very good player. He's very versatile and all that stuff. So I think Harry Giles is going to become the guy we thought he was going to be now that he's finally healthy. All right, that's all the time we got. Thanks for watching. We'll see how the brackets go. We'll see you next week for the Sweet 16 preview, and we're going to recap what goes on this weekend. Thank you.